Apple released the iPhone 13, and if you are an iPhone 12 user, you may be wondering if it's worth the upgrade. Or if you have an older iPhone, you may be wondering if you should get the iPhone 12 and save a little bit of money, or go ahead and buy the 13. In today's video, I'm gonna help you with this decision, but before we get started, don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of videos and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. This video is sponsored by Setup, an incredible cross-platform suite which gives you access to over 200 iOS and macOS applications without any additional cost. You only need to pay for your subscription and choose the apps that you would like to use. Now, a great benefit is that you can start a 7-day trial for free when you use the link listed down below in the description. So I'm going to be starting off talking about the main differences between the iPhone 12 and 13, and then we're going to move on to the iPhone 12 Pro and 13 Pro. First off, I'm going to be talking about the design, and this year we did not have a lot of big changes regarding design. So both of the iPhones are practically the same. The main thing is that we now have a smaller notch, which is 20% smaller, and we have a bigger camera module due to the bigger sensors. Something else that we can see when we look at the new cameras is that the position also changed. So on the iPhone 12, the camera position was vertically, and now if you look to the iPhone 13, you'll see that they are positioned diagonally, and this is due to the bigger sensors. Apple did not have much space, they did not have room to keep the previous position. They had to change it because the camera sensors are bigger. The new iPhones are also a little bit thicker and a little bit heavier due to the bigger batteries, which we're going to be talking about in a minute, but we now have new colors. The iPhone 12 is available in purple, blue, green, product red, white, and black, and the iPhone 13 is available in starlight, midnight, blue, pink, and product red. It's also important to consider that this year we still have the same 4 models. So for the iPhone 13, we still have the 5.4-inch 13 mini and 6.1-inch 13. So the sizes are still the same. What changes in the display is the notch that I mentioned that is 20% smaller. Now, talking about the cameras, the main differences are for the Pro models, but there are differences for the regular 13s as well. So starting off with cinematic mode, it is now available in 1080p at 30 frames per second. This was not available on the iPhone 12, so this is a new addition to the iPhone lineup, and I have to say it works impressively well. I was not expecting that. If you follow me for a while here, you know that I'm not a huge fan of portrait mode, but cinematic mode does work really well. Dolby Vision HDR is also available up to 4K at 60 frames per second, up from 30 frames per second on the iPhone 12. And also, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the camera sensors are bigger. And we now have a sensor shift optical stabilization in the iPhones due to those bigger sensors. So the stabilization is a lot smoother than it used to be on the iPhone 12. Apple also introduced something called Photographic Styles, which allows users to change the camera settings even before taking a photo, for example. So this is a lot better than taking a photo and then editing it and throwing a bunch of filters in them, because you're going to be preserving even more detail in your photos. This also gives a lot more freedom to the user because you can actually tweak the temperature just a little bit, and as I've said, even before you take the picture. Photographic Styles cinematic mode and HDR video recording with Dolby Vision are all available with a front-facing camera as well. And talking about the chips, the iPhone 13 lineup has the A15 Bionic chip, which brings a lot more performance to the iPhones and more battery life. It optimizes the battery life, so we have even more hours to use our smartphones. And talking about capacity, the iPhone 13 now starts at 128 gigabytes of storage, up from 64 in the iPhone 12. So if you're considering purchasing the newer version, you will be paying the same price for the base model, but you'll be getting a lot more storage. And last but not least, the iPhone 13 also has dual eSIM support. So if you need this feature, you may consider the iPhone 13. And now let's talk about the iPhones 12 and 13 Pro. So as I've mentioned, the design did not change much between the iPhone 13 and 12 and did not change between the 13 Pro and 12 Pro as well. The main difference is the notch, which is also 20% smaller, and the camera module is a lot bigger than it used to be, also due to the bigger sensors. The colors are also a little bit different. Last year, Apple introduced the Pacific Blue color, and this year they introduced the Sierra Blue. I have to say that at first I didn't love the new color. I thought the iPhone 12 Pro's color was a lot better because I do like the darker shade of blue. But after I saw it in person, it really surprised me. I thought it was more like a pastel blue, but it's actually a light blue with gray undertones. So it's really, really pretty in real life. And now we finally have a display with ProMotion technology with adaptive refresh rate up to 120 Hz. So this means that your iPhone's refresh rate can change from 10 Hz to 120 Hz depending on what you're doing at the moment. So if you're reading a text, for example, the refresh rate can go down to 10 Hz. And if you're playing a game, for example, the refresh rate can go up to 120 Hz. So this adaptive refresh rate is great because it also helps us save battery life. And now let's talk about the cameras. They are indeed a lot better in the new lineup. Apple was not lying to us, and we now have a new telephoto lens, a new wide lens with f1.5, and a new ultra wide lens with f1.8, which allows a lot more light to go through the sensor, and this allows us to have better night mode photography, photos with more detail, sharper than they used to be. So the new lenses are indeed a lot better. We now have 3 times optical zoom, up from 2 times in the iPhone 12 Pro. And as I mentioned earlier, we now have cinematic mode for recording videos with shallow depth of field at 1080p at 30 frames per second. And I know that I've already said that, but I'm really impressed with how well the cinematic mode works. In the Pro models, Apple also introduced something called ProRes video recording, up to 4K at 30 frames per second and 1080p at 30 frames per second for those iPhones that only have 128 gigabytes of storage, because 1 minute of ProRes recording equals 6 gigabytes of storage. So they're limiting to 1080p to save you, so you can save space on your iPhone in case you choose the 128 gigabytes of storage option. And going back to photos, I cannot forget to mention to you guys about macro photography mode. Oh my god, I'm extremely impressed with it. It works so well. I've been testing it for a few days now, and I will be doing camera comparison between the iPhone 12 Pro and 13 Pro. 12 Pro Max and 13 Pro Max. So I'm not going to be talking a lot about the cameras in this video, but definitely come back to the channel to watch the camera comparison because I'm sure you will love it. And if by any chance you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any of the new content coming up. So just a quick note, it's important for you guys to consider that this year, both the iPhones 13 Pro and Pro Max are identical. The only differences are the size and the battery, because the iPhone 13 Pro Max, of course, is a bigger iPhone, so it has room for a bigger battery. But Apple did not change anything in the cameras, which is great. And talking about storage, the iPhones 13 Pro and Pro Max now have the option of 1 terabyte of storage. So if you're used to shooting a lot of videos and photos with your iPhone, downloading a lot of applications, games, and things like that, you now have the option to choose bigger storage. With the iPhones 12 Pro and Pro Max, for example, the capacity goes up to 512 gigabytes. So you now have more options with the iPhones 13 Pro and Pro Max. In conclusion, is it worth upgrading from the iPhone 12 to the 13? Or if you have an older iPhone, should you buy the 12 and save a little bit of money, or go ahead and purchase the 13? As I always say, it's hard for me to tell because it depends on your budget and what you need in a smartphone. But what I would say is, if you currently have the iPhone 12, I would stick to it a while longer. Now, if you're switching from an older iPhone, on the other hand, and you really think it's worth paying $100 extra for a smaller notch, bigger battery, and slightly better cameras, make sure you do get the 13, especially if you're planning on sticking to it a while longer. But Marina, what about the pros? Should I upgrade? And I would say that this is the tough part because the main changes are in the Pro models. The camera upgrades are incredible. Cinematic mode, the new wide and ultra wide lenses are great. The macro mode is surreal, and the bigger battery does make a difference, especially for the Pro Maxes. The iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max also have a smaller notch and the awesome 120Hz ProMotion technology. So if you're upgrading from the 12 Pro and think that these changes are worth the price and you have the money for it, I would say go for it. You're not gonna regret it. Also, in my opinion, this is the perfect iPhone for content creators that use a lot of social media because you can do so much with your iPhone's camera right now and post it straight from your iPhone. You don't have to shoot on your camera and go ahead and edit everything and then airdrop everything to your phone and then post it. So I think this is one of the best smartphones for content creators. But if you are a regular user, so if you only use your phone for calls or text and actually just look at social media or play a little bit of games here and there, I think it's not that worth it. But I will be doing another video here on the channel comparing all of the iPhone 13 models. So I'm going to be talking about the 13 mini, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max, and then I'll help you make a decision in case you decide to purchase the 13 but you're not sure which model you should get. So for sure, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet so you don't miss any of the new content. There's also the camera comparison that I mentioned to you guys, so there's definitely a lot of new videos coming up. I hope I helped you, and I know that there's a lot of smaller differences between all models, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments and I would love to help you out. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.